right under my stand. Oh. Where? Right there. Oh, I see him. Here he comes. Here he comes.
You're listening to the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Bowhunter. And now your hosts, Josh Grund and John Shiner.
Bryce, you're here.
I'm here.
What's up, dude?
I'm back.
How long's it been, man, since you've been on the podcast?
I would honestly say almost a year.
Dude, it's been a long time.
I guess maybe pre-deer season.
Yeah, I think you were on once pre-deer season, but like for anybody who hasn't, for anyone who hasn't gone back and like listened to some of the old podcasts, Bryce was like the dude that helped me start this. I did the first probably 5 or 10 podcasts with Bryce, and before we brought John on, and so he's one of the OGs, man, and he came on for this podcast because we went to Kentucky. The last podcast we had, me and John talked really in depth about our opening weekend of Kentucky, and Bryce was with us. So we kind of talked a little bit about what you did, Bryce, but maybe today we'll get into a little bit of like your perspective of that trip, kind of takeaways that you had. What's up, John?
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, man.
Another one. Getting put into the books. Kind of excited about it. Just for the fact, with Bryce back, I know I had my first impressions of Kentucky, and, the not culture shock, but habitat shock that I had. And I'm just kind of excited to hear, Bryce, your first impressions of just, getting down there and what you're used to and what, kind of what Kentucky is.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. John, you're still hunting, right?
I got one more weekend from the date that we're recording this. I've got, one more weekend. So literally 3 days, and I've got a lonely tag yet to fill.
Well, we're praying on you. Hopefully we can walk through some stuff. We can all learn some stuff from this conversation, and maybe you can take it with you in the woods this weekend. But yeah, let's get into it, guys. Let's talk about Kentucky. Bryce, what'd you think? So what happened? So we started out. We'll kind of fly through it real quick. If you guys didn't listen to the first podcast, we all drove down there on a Friday afternoon and tried to roost birds. And Bryce, what'd you think of the first evening in Kentucky? What do you take away from that experience? We ended up roosting a bird.
Yeah, I mean, action right away. That landscape we were at, that first place, was beautiful. I mean, it kind of reminded me of PA in a way. Reminded me of Pennsylvania. But yeah, I mean, heck, we were hot on them as soon as we got out of the truck, which was very promising. You know what I mean? That really get you fired up. But yeah, I mean, that was exciting. I had to be the ears there for you, but
yeah. So I did bring that up, man, about how like we were down in this creek bottom, and that bird was gobbling up on a ridge, probably 200-300 yards from us, and Bryce was just like, he's over here. I hear him. He's right here. And I'm like, no, I don't know, man. I think he's maybe that way. And like, this way. Bryce like, no, dude, he's right there. And I'm just
that
like,
would have been,
no.
That would have been a great footage of like a faraway picture of us just pointing.
Yeah.
Side of the creek bottom.
I couldn't hear shit, man. So I'm happy you were there, because I think like I probably would have roosted that bird in a completely different place, I guess. I don't know. I might be stupid, and I probably would have been 500 yards from that bird in the morning, but
right.
The way we did it, and what was cool, and this is like a really good tip for you guys listening, what is really cool to do if you're roosting birds with a couple people or by yourself is to try to hear that bird from different locations. Me and you, Bryce, we were split up, 100, 200 yards apart a couple different times, and we both would hear that bird, mark it on our Onyx, and then come together and be like, I heard him here. Well, I heard him here. And then, like if we're close or we, our pins are kind of matching up, that's a pretty good, idea that's right where that is. You know what I mean?
And that's where when we got that pinpoint, we went to looking at terrain, right? We're like, well, I think it's on this side of this little drainage ditch, because they like to be somewhere they can fly right down to. You know what I mean? They want to soar a little bit, and that's where mapping and things we've talked about in the past, using terrain, I think helped us pinpoint. I mean, it did. I mean, it worked.
Absolutely.
Dude, we were on top of him
in the morning. We got in there in the morning. He was gobbling what? How far was he when he first started gobbling? 80 yards, 90 yards?
Yeah, not 100 yards.
Which is as far as we could have got because it was so open,
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then I told that whole story about how I blew it and embarrassed myself, but...
At least I won up on the embarrassment.
But, like, what did you take away from that hunt as, like, a kind of a... and correct me if I'm wrong, but like kind of a newer turkey hunter.
Yeah.
Like, what did you kind of learn from that, I guess?
From that first hunt, kind of back to setup, you know what I mean? We got on top of him trying to get him from holding up, and one more gobble, he was like, oh, shit, right there. And we were scrambling to find somewhere to take cover.
Yep.
But that's kind of the name of the game, though, is sometimes that happens. If he's going to hold up, you got to go after him, and we just got caught with our pants down a little. But
yeah, I don't know if he held up or he was just really taking his time coming to us, but we ended up, like, he kept gobbling when he landed, and he sounded further away after he flew out of the tree, and he just kept gobbling from that same spot. And then he got quiet for a little bit, if I remember right, so me and Bryce sat there and we're like, let's just kind of work up this hill towards him and see how close we can get. And, like, we're in the middle of, I don't know, we probably went 80 yards, if that. And then
around a finger. That's why he was sounding odd. We were, like, around that finger. He probably sounded a lot farther than he was. But I would say setup is a big takeaway. And, I don't know, maybe we could have been more patient going around that finger. Like, hey, maybe his gobble's echoing away from us off this little point.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just creep around here and see what happens. But we kept pushing.
Yeah, if I'm looking back, I'm thinking probably what we could have done different there was stay right where we were. Because with that finger, the top of that finger was like 30 yards from us.
Yeah.
And he would have had to pop up over that, and we may have got him within shooting range.
That would have been takeaway too. We were on like a trail, remember? Yes. We would have been in the wide freaking open.
Yeah, maybe
debating that of, well, where are we gonna go? And we're laying on the side of the hill.
Yeah, we're walking up there in the dark, and I've never been up there.
Oh,
And so when it starts getting light out, we're like seeing it for the first time. Yeah, a lot of hens everywhere. But yeah, that was a good hunt. I think another takeaway I took from that is, judging yardage on a turkey. I think me and John talked about this a little bit too, was maybe carrying a rangefinder with us in the future, because dude, there's such a big difference between ranging something on flat ground and ranging something in the hills, in the woods, or in a field, and
right.
I just don't have enough practice in them hills, and I literally thought that bird was 35 yards, and when we stepped it off, it was like 60, dude. So, it was far. But how about, so what happened after that? We went and roosted some birds. We tried roosting some birds. We ended up seeing some jakes, right, John?
Yeah. So we switched up and left that one area and went kind of into the boon a little bit. So the terrain changed. Just out of curiosity, Bryce, your first impressions of just kind of the boon itself, what were your first impressions of just walking ridges, and what did it look like?
The boon is huge, and I love that, dude. It was beautiful. It, like, almost breathtaking to hunt. It nothing like I've ever hunted. Like, when we go down to West Virginia, or even when we went to the Wayne, you still have a lot of trails and right-of-ways and even pastures, etc. It's not just all big open woods. And that place, as far as you could see or walk, as many miles as you want to put on in a day, you're not going to see nothing but big, deep valleys and timber. And that to me was awesome. That is, you guys know I'm kind of old school, you know what I mean? I like to make it hard on myself. And that is hard hunting, and that was awesome. Also, the ridges, that one ridge I walked out the one morning, John, where you had them two fighting, that was the smallest ridge I've ever walked in my life. And that was cool. Just hearing action on a ridge like that, you just felt surrounded by wild turkeys. I mean, you know what I mean? You were really in the cut.
What do you mean small, Bryce?
Oh, that ridge was 5 feet wide.
Oh, you mean like the width of it?
Yeah, the width.
Oh,
okay. The length went for a long time, but until I ever got to an intersection of ridges, that ridge was 5 feet. I mean, and it was straight down. I went down the one hill. This was something else I liked about the Boone that was different. There wasn't many benches to them hills down there, mountains, whatever you want to call them. West Virginia, where we hunt, a lot different, or even the Wayne, I mean, even in Southern Ohio, it's bench after bench after bench. Mm-hmm. And I almost think that it can benefit when you're hunting wild turkeys in an area like that, because a lot of times the gobblers will hold up on a bench and just sit there and gobble like, oh, I know she can see me. But
oh yeah, I think
stuck on top just waiting and he ain't ever gonna move.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference because parts of the piece of public we were hunting the first morning, there are benches there.
Yeah.
And that to me is a lot easier to, kind of set up on a bird or figure out, it's a lot easier to traverse too, because if you want to drop down off the top, you got a flat spot to work and walk and you're not side hilling it all day long,
Right.
And then even in deer hunting too, the Boone is a whole nother thing. If you're hunting hills that have benches, where do you think those deer are walking? The benches, But the Boone, it's I don't know, And I don't know if I even want to walk down there to find out,
Oh, no.
because it doesn't stop. But yeah, they're big. How big would you say? From where do you go in West Virginia when you hunt, Bryce?
Kind of central-ish.
Okay, how big?
To the east side.
How would you compare the hills?
I'd say they're similar in height, but the West Virginia ones they're longer because it takes them so long to get to the bottom, or seems longer. Sorry, not are longer, but seems longer because it's bench or right away bench, and then you get down to the bottom. In the Boone, it's probably the same height. They're giant, but it's straight down, you know what I mean? You look down in West Virginia, you can usually see the next bench. Okay, I know the bottom's probably a couple more benches down. In the Boone, you look down, you don't know. You just see a change in trees or brush or something, and you don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say they're drastically different, I guess on height, but ridge-wise, they're definitely different. I mean, I think the Boone has a lot of tighter little ridges and fingers that come off than where I'm used to in West Virginia. Yeah,
it is very snaky and a lot of different little, but they're a lot bigger too. When you're looking at a map too, that's what always gets me. When I'm looking at a map and I'm trying to plan, I'm gonna just run over here and get to this ridge, and then I look up and I see how far away I'm actually looking at it. I'm like, dude, that's going to take me 45 minutes to get over there where I hear that bird. I'm not going that far, I'm not going to make it over there before he quits. But yeah, it's interesting topography, especially for, a bunch of Ohio boys. But, we're learning it though. But, so let's talk about that morning, because me and John kind of really dived into the morning when he had those birds fighting. If you were sorry for you listeners, we're just kind of glazing past a bunch of this stuff. Go back and listen to the last episode if you want to hear kind of that breakdown. But tell us what happened to you that morning, Bryce. We ended up running into other hunters. There was some pressure where we were hunting, and we ended up running into other hunters and had to kind of change our game plan as it's getting light out. and found a spot that had 3 different ridges, and we all kind of split up. Yeah, so tell us about your morning.
Yeah, I walked out probably, I don't know, halfway out that first ridge I got sent out on, and it was popping off right off the roost. I had gobblers to my right, which were the ones I think John encountered, I think. But then I had a couple down to the other side to my left. Sounded like at least 2, might have been 3, like a group of jakes or something. And I heard them later. I had heard them 2 to the right a lot earlier off the roost and whatnot, and these other ones got fired up later. And I was working them for a little bit. Sounded like they were getting closer. And then you know how when you got one answering, and then you can almost hear them turn around on you.
Oh yeah,
or it seems like they are. I heard that, and the ridge I was on took a big curve, and they started moving back towards that curve out of the bottom or side of the hill, wherever they were, and they were still gobbling. I'm like, well, they're on me. I'm gonna have they're away. They're off me. I'm gonna have to make a move or do something. I'm brainstorming. Like I'm just gonna go down. I'm gonna try and creep and get up over that other ridge. Stay to the right of them. I know they were going away to me from my left, and I heard a shot, and I never heard them again. I think somebody was over there on a different ridge system and called them right off me. But after that was the end of my action for that day on that ridge.
Yeah, me and John ended up taking the afternoon, and we went and hung a bunch of cameras on a piece of public for some deer that we were interested in, and you kind of just went bushwhacking for 9 hours. Your camera died. I remember you called me, and you're like, "Where you guys at?" And I'm like, we're still down at this other spot. Where are you?" And you were like, "I'm like an hour and a half from the truck. I'm just gonna stay here till dark. My phone's gonna die. I'm gonna try and roost something, so I'll see you after dark."
I covered some freaking ground that afternoon. I went all the way back out that ridge system I started on. Did a big old freaking loop. I don't know how many miles. I mean, I walked for a couple hours, and I found this like this old logging path that it was off the beaten path that other hunters are taking to bridge systems. Right, I'm like, this might be it. You know what I mean? I might be able to find a bird out here. Hasn't been screwed around with. I'll give it a shot. Got up there, called a little bit, nothing. I'm like, I'm gonna hang out. Just gonna sit here. I'm beat. You know what I mean? About out of Snickers bars and water. My phone's gonna die. It's time for a nap. So I wake up after I talked to Josh. Yeah, and I heard one, a ridge across, gobble twice. I'm like, okay, I know there's a bird there. Couldn't get him to answer or nothing. But we ended up going over to that ridge in the morning. Went after him.
So let me jump in there, because during that morning when John had the birds fighting, you heard that guy shoot a bird. I was on the ridge over, like I don't know which way, to the west of you guys. Excuse me. And I heard another bird gobbling all morning, and down this valley, there's a road down there, and there are houses, and there's some private, and then it comes up, and then there's public. And I heard a bird gobbling. I don't know if he was on the private or the public. He sounded like he was right in that area all morning. I was calling to him. He was gobbling back. There were dogs barking. He'd gobble. And then you heard a bird that was kind of in that same area. I remember when we were back, we were getting dinner or something. We were looking at our maps, and I was like, dude, I think I heard the same bird that you heard, when you were roosting. So, that morning, instead of making you walk, 5 miles into that spot, I ended up dropping you off at a spot where you had access. Yeah. And you essentially walked right in up underneath a bird, right?
Right into him.
Yeah. What happened that morning? Because I don't even remember. I tried to recount the story a little bit, but what happened to you that morning?
I walked straight up that hill, and it was risky, right? He could have been roosted on the side I was walking up. He could have been roosted right on top. Who knows? And I got up there, and it was another super tight freaking ridge. It might have been, I think it was narrower than the one the day before. This one was nuts. Like, you had what trail walking path you were on, and that was it. It was tight.
Yeah.
I get up there, starts getting light. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna I don't want to push farther anymore. I'm starting to get close to where there was another ridge junction, you know what I mean, an intersection. I'm like, I'm just going to lay low here. And got light, and boom, he hammers right to my right. Almost like he was, he sounded almost like he was eye level. That's how close he probably was.
Okay, jeez.
And he was on top of me. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to hunker down. And I did a fake fly down with my hat. I never heard him fly down, though. I don't know. I don't know if I'm just bad at hearing those. I just don't. I'm not good at telling when they're down or not. Sometimes when they get down, they're gobbling. I can tell, but I never hear them fly down. But did the fake fly down, kind of light called, and I had him hammering, and here he came. He came right up that hill. He definitely was roosted below me. He definitely was. He sounded eye level, but he couldn't have been. You know what I mean? There was no ridge to the side he was on. He was below me. And I worked him all the way up. I forget how I was sitting on that ridge. I wasn't sitting on the down face side because I didn't want him to see me. I knew he'd pick me out. You know what I mean? So I was right on top of it, back against a tree. And yeah, I was just waiting for him to come up, and I could tell he was coming and he got quiet. I'm like, all right, here we go. I forget what side of the tree I was turned on. I must have been sitting on towards the left side of the tree because I couldn't turn to my right. That's what fucked me. But when he got quiet, all I heard about 10 minutes later was him walking. I could hear them leaves crunching. I'm like, all right, here he comes. The dude, every time it sounds like they're gonna come right to your face. You know what I mean?
Oh,
hear them leaves come. They sound like they're gonna be right in front of you. And
pop right up.
He popped to the right probably 20 yards, and I went to turn, and I sitting on the wrong side of the tree. I couldn't freaking turn over very well. When I finally got my gun up, he was weaving through trees, and he flew off the ridge, and that was it. I didn't even get a shot at him.
Damn.
But
yeah, so like, I don't know, how do you do it, John? Because like when I set up on a bird, usually say he's gobbling at noon. I usually, when I set up, I'm gonna try to set up facing like 2:30 or 3 o'clock almost. Maybe not quite 3 o'clock, but just to give myself that kind of, because I can swing my gun all the way back to 9 o'clock if I have to, real easy.
Yeah.
But it's this, like you said, it's that your right side if you're a right-handed shooter. So I usually try to set up to give myself some leeway depending on which way that bird decides to come in, you know what I mean? But a lot of times, I don't think of that, and I aim right at it because I think, he's coming in, and everything's happening fast, so you don't really think it through too quick. But
yeah, I think I always try and, set up for the ideal situation. Where I'm comfortable and I can sit, because, dude, I get so uncomfortable sitting for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So I try and get the most comfortable where my feet don't go numb. But I also try, like, setting up for an ideal situation where my knee is up and my gun is sitting on my knee.
Yeah.
So I'm like super stable and I can just that's the ideal situation. And again, never works out that way. Well, sometimes it does, but for me this year, it did not work out that way. And we'll dive into that, but that's kind of how I do it, as comfortable as possible and having some sort of stability. Where I think he's going to show up, I don't have to move.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. Maybe you young bucks, Bryce, aren't worried about it. But, dude, the older you get, man, it's hard to sit. You have a couple back injuries or something like that, sitting in the same spot for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And, if you sit down on a bird, you might be stuck there for an hour or two, so you better be comfortable. So that's a really good point. And having a good butt pad, making sure you're not going to sit on a big tree that has a goofy root sticking up your ass or something like that. Or
that's always a challenge. I agree.
It is, yeah.
I don't care how old you are. Your butt's going to go. No, something at some point.
So,
but an issue I ran into on that ridge too was compared to other spots, the tree size. I was almost on a ridge of these like saplings, dude. Yeah. And there was some couple piney, coniferous, whatever type trees that were a little bigger, but it was just slim pickings up there.
But see, that's kind of where you want to be too, I think, when you're after turkeys. And we talked about this too, John, is like the power line. I think a lot of birds were, there was power lines pretty much everywhere we were hunting birds or close to it, right? And I think that's bringing in the hens for nesting and all kinds of stuff like that, which is obviously bringing in the gobblers. But if you look on Onyx, down there in the Boone, it shows a lot of like, when those chunks were either select cut or clear cut. I don't remember which one. And we were kind of focusing around those chunks too. And it tells you like, this chunk here was cut in 2017. This was cut in 2019. So to find that like, high stem count and some of those, something from 2017, you're going to have a ton of, 3 to 4 inch trees. And it's going to be hard to, get a bird to work through that maybe and get a shot at a bird, and hard to, find a tree that's worth sitting on that you're not just sticking out like a sore thumb. But working those edges ideally, but it's hard when you're talking about ridges that are like this at the top. So,
fast forwarding into the next day, the day that you connected on your bird, Josh. I know, Bryce, you had some action. Shoot, Bryce, you had.
I think this is the same day.
Same day.
Yeah, the bird I just talked about flew off that ridge, flew right down to Josh, and he was working it, and that's when he killed him. I'm pretty damn sure.
Bryce came walking up to me with that bird over my shoulder. He was like, "You son of a bitch, you stole my bird." I said, "I sure shit did, son." But so like when I was down there, I heard. So my bird stopped gobbling for like 20 minutes. And that's why I ended up getting up. Go listen to the last podcast, guys. But I heard a gunshot, and I thought it was you. I guess it wasn't. What happened after you heard me shoot?
I got on another one.
Yeah. I heard the whole thing.
Yeah. So
I don't know whose gunshot that was. It must have been not you or me. But then when I'm walking up the hill, I just hear off in the direction I knew you were. And I'm like, oh. And then go. And I'm talking to John. John's driving down the road. I'm trying to walk out and meet him, And I'm like, I think Bryce is working a bird right now. He's just one goblin. But what happened with that bird?
This bird this one's worse. This is a more wild story, dude. Not even because of the ending, but the way this bird maneuvered around me. So, picture me back on this ridge, right? That first bird I called on the right, up from the roost, right?
Yeah.
If I'm facing up the ridge. Well, to the left, there was another bird popping off the ridge across. Same time I worked that other one up and blew it. So I'm like, okay, I'm staying right. On this ridge, I probably didn't even walk more than 50 yards each way for both of these birds. I'm calling him up from the bottom. After a hen, I called a hen into me, from that first bird. When I finally moved her, that bird flew away. I moved around. I started looking over the other hill, and here came this hen. Not even 10 minutes after, probably.
Okay.
She was real quiet when she was walking by, and I kind of watched her disappear down the hill, and then I heard her start popping off. I mean, some of the most beautiful calling from a live hen I've probably ever heard, and
that's cool, man. Remember that when you fired
that other bird up.
Oh,
that was on the other side again. I'm like, all right, sweet. Well, she kind of shut up, and he kept gobbling, and I took over, and he popped right onto me. And
really?
I worked him all the way up at that bottom, and he's coming to me. I'm set up against this big down old growth tree. I don't know, and I'm nestled in, dude. This time I'm like, I'm not getting seen. You know what I mean? It was a pretty almost perfect setup. I felt like, and he's coming. He gets quiet. I'm just waiting for them leaves. You know what I mean? I'm waiting. A little readier this time, and I never heard him for a while. Like, what the hell? I was baffled. He sounded like he was right on top of me, you know what I mean? And I think he went up past me and up over the ridge. Boom, he lit up on the other side of the ridge of me. I swear he walked right past me and over the other side. Right. So I get back up on the ridge, call, boom, he hammers again. And I was pretty upset at the time, so I was just sitting on a log on that ridge, semi-covered up. Not as good as the other log I was talking about, but I was like, I'm not sitting on one of these saplings again. I'm going to get caught turning. As soon as he pops his head up, I'm going to be ready. And here he came, same way, shut up the last 10 minutes. All I heard was leaves, and he was coming right at me, and then he went to my left, which I could pull to my left this time because I was up a little higher. Head pops up. I aim up on him. Boom, he goes right behind these two decent-sized pine trees, so I had to wait. I was waiting for him to go around the left side, and I shot when he was doing the whole head bob, trying to go back down the hill, and I missed. And there he went flying. I threw another prayer at him. Missed that one.
I told everybody this was going to be a theme this year.
Them two trees, man. Oh, man. Them two bigger pines. They fucked me. If I could have just walked with him for another second, you know what I mean, and actually put the beat on him.
Yeah.
But once he went up past some trees, I was like guessing, you know what I mean? Is he going to go left of him, right of him, as he's bobbing his head? And when I pulled, I wasn't aiming. I didn't bury it.
So when he was coming up the hill, he spotted you then? Because you were
it was like I was up a little bit. It was a quick draw of we both see each other.
So what'd you learn from that hunt?
Don't be lazy and pick an easy spot to sit. But I'm telling you, dude, it was not good pickings to sit up there. My thought this time was like, I'm not getting caught trying to turn or something. We're going to do the old Texas showdown, let the clock hit noon, and whoever wins. And he won, but...
Well, it happens, man.
It happens.
That's the thing, dude. Turkeys are on turkey time. I hear people say that. And, it probably took him... He was probably coming in the whole time. You were from when you first messed with him, and then you didn't hear him. He gobbled, down the hill from you or something, and then you got up and were moving around. Like, he was probably looking for you. So probably. If you would have just hung tight at that first tree, he may have come right into you, but just taking his good old time, dude. Sometimes you got to sit there for an hour and a half.
Right.
And it's hard to do.
That hen definitely threw me off, too. She got in that bottom and damn near split us. I'm like, I'm toast on this bird. Like,
yeah, that's that. Yeah, when that happens, that can be tough.
Right.
But
set up. Gotta be ready. We gotta be ready.
So then you ended up meeting up with us, and I was dragging my bird out, and then so we got my bird on ice. Went back to the Airbnb. And then we decided, let's go drive around. And
well, we had another spot that you had been to. Both of us had deer hunted.
Yeah, you've hunted it.
We've deer hunted it before, and I think the last time that you were there, deer hunting late season, you're like, dude, there are turkey sign all over these ridges, and I know you made it a point that. At some point, we got to get over there.
Yeah.
So at this point in the trip, we were kind of tired, and we're like, you know what? Let's do it the easy way. We knew that there was a hayfield that was on the public, and we're like, this piece is kind of off the beaten path. It's not, the easiest to spot looking at maps. So we're like, you know what? Let's get over there. Let's triple team this. It's in the afternoon. Let's grab some decoys. Let's grab a couple sandwiches. And let's go hit that hayfield and cause a little ruckus with our calls. And let's just kick back and see what the afternoon holds, right? Yep. So I know we packed up we hit the gas station, refueled on some essentials, and headed on over there. And wouldn't you know it, a Michigan truck is sitting.
It was New York.
Was it New York?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you know it, a New York truck sitting in the only parking spot for that chunk.
Literally the only.
So we were, like, our foil, or our plans have been foiled again. And we're sitting there, and I don't know who noticed it because I was driving. And one of you guys were like, dude, are those turkeys in the field? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There was a handful of turkeys sitting in the field, maybe 200-300 yards from the truck. And we're like, oh my gosh, somebody's in there. They're obvious. It doesn't look like they're on them because we can't hear anybody calling or nothing. They must be up on the ridges, and they just don't know that these birds are right below them, 200 yards from their truck. Long story short, we debated going in. We thought against it, and we continued our journey on plan B and C. So we jumped on our phones, cruised around and saw another section of public that we had never been to. So we're like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. We got 3 of us. If anything, we can split up a little bit and do a little roosting, right?
Yep.
Looking at the maps, we're like, you know what? There's a power line running through the back of this ridge, and we could walk the bottom all the way back, right? So we start walking back, and me and Josh are behind Bryce. Bryce is leading the charge, and me and Josh are just chit-chatting and BSing. And Bryce, dude, you stop and you turn around and you go, did you fellas hear that? And we're like, no, dude, we're la-di-da-ing along the trail talking. And you're like, dude,
sometimes I don't know if I'm hearing shit, so I gotta make sure.
Yeah, you're like,
you got them good ears, man.
Yeah, you're like, dude, I heard one. And we're like, we didn't hear shit. So we kept walking, and we were walking a lot slower. And sure enough, gobble, 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 right in that bottom. So that kind of.
How far do you think we were from the truck? How far do you think we were honestly from the truck?
Not 100 yards.
150 yards, yeah.
Yeah.
Textbook.
This was at 3:00 in the afternoon, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, this is late, and this bird was gobbling on his own, and we just walked into it, like, lucked into this.
And knowing, looking at your watch, you're like, dude, we got a couple hours. We don't have all day to make this happen. But we had the luxury of having 3 of us. Josh, you had already shot a bird. Me and Bryce are open for business. Let's utilize a group. I think the plan was to have Josh stay back and be the caller. And then me and Bryce can scoot up as far as we can and have Josh pull him right into us. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned on this one. So there was a logging road hugging one side of the drainage. So the other side of the drainage is just a flat. It's like a little wetland flat.
Yep.
So
pretty wide open too, huh, John?
Yeah, and it goes way back in too. Yeah, yep.
It felt like we were walking down a football field, and the grandstands were going up, right? And on
that's a good way to put it.
One of the hash, at one of the hash marks to the sideline was a logging road that sat 10 feet up.
Mm-hmm.
So, we could hear him gobbling really good. And it was hard to tell how far back he was. We knew he was, maybe, I don't know, what would you guys guess?
180, 200.
Yeah, a couple hundred.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing was me and Bryce, scooted up as far as we could. That logging road kind of dipped down and got back to the flat area of the whole basin. So I ended up dropping down off that logging road and just sat on the side of it. with the thought being that, if he comes in, he's going to turn that corner where he can't see, and then he'll be able to look through that whole basin. So I went down there and sat, and then Bryce kind of went up above the logging road. So in essence, we could have the whole thing covered. I'd have the bottom half, Bryce would have the logging road, and whatever woods were to the left. That was kind of intense.
It was very intense.
And I want to step in and say something. Josh, for a little bit there, I thought like you weren't calling enough at one point, but you freaking played that perfect. Calling behind us. That fucker pardon the language. That bird got pissed.
Yeah.
Very quick because Josh you gave him 2 light calls, pretty spread apart, and then you shut up for 25.
That was hard,
like
too.
30 minutes. Josh quit calling for a long time, and he was just hammering. Like, where'd you go?
Yeah.
That was impressive.
Yeah. Josh, yeah. What were you thinking when you were trying to call?
Well, let me back up a little bit. I think so when we were walking in, we heard that bird, we all got fired up, dude, because it had been a long day. I did kill a bird in the morning, but like the rest of the day, I felt like we were just getting, kicked in the balls and like running into going to places where we were really excited about that one spot. There was somebody there. Didn't think it was going to happen. We were walking into this random piece of public at 3 p.m. It's 80 degrees out, and this bird's gobbling. We're like, oh my God, this is a miracle, And I was like very fired up for you guys, and I wanted one of you to connect, right? And I think I pressured you guys a little too quick to set up, because I remember like you looking back at me, Bryce. I was like, "Sit the fuck down!" Now, and John was like fumbling around looking for a spot like 70 yards up in front of me, and I'm like, "John, sit down, dude. What are you doing?" And John's like, "All right," And then like I started calling, and so this is. This isn't a tactic I think that's like, new to anybody or anything. I think it's pretty well documented that it kills a lot of birds, but it's hard to do. And a lot of newer hunters, I feel like, always, if a bird's gobbling, it makes you want to call back to him and keep him gobbling because you think that's like, it's working, he's gobbling. But oftentimes, all you're doing is reinforcing to that tom or that gobbler that you're coming or you're interested as a hen, right? And that's what they're supposed to do in nature. That tom is supposed to stand up there and strut and gobble and bring all the hens to him. So you're trying to get this bird to do the opposite of what he naturally wants to do. And the best way to do that is get them all fired up, get them all excited, and then act like you're not interested. Right? That works for us guys too. If you think about it. So like it works for turkeys, man. So like, the longer we went without me calling to him, the more he started gobbling, and those gobbles started getting closer. And at that point you're like, just don't call. He knows where you're at. And that's another thing too. I think people think like, I got to let him know where I'm at. That I promise you. That bird knows what freaking tree you're sitting at. He knows exactly where you're at. And, that group tactic you're talking about, John, I think is so effective too, because a lot of times in big mature birds, especially on public land, when they're pressured, they've been shot at a few times, called in a few times, they will cover a ton of ground. If they're 200 yards out, they'll cover 150 yards, but then they'll hold up at 60 or 50 yards and just gobble their head off like, hey, you got to meet me the rest of the way. I'm not just going to walk into a trap here. Yep. You know what I mean? Yep. And I think that happens a lot. But being able to use this tactic where you guys are sitting 50, 60 yards in front of me and I'm way back behind you, the idea is, if he does hold up, he's going to hold up right in front of you guys. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's kind of I think that's kind of what happened. That's kind of what we ended up seeing. I don't know, John, I don't know how much you ended up seeing, but Bryce, you can tell us your half of the story if you want.
So we panic, okay, and I'm going to find somewhere to sit. So at this point, I haven't learned the lesson of you should probably have something behind you that blocks your outline. So I find nice big briar bush. I know it didn't look comfy, but we're like, this bird's right on top of us. I got to get somewhere quick. So pick this big briar bush, a slight little sapling to lean on. I'm like, all right, it'll do.
And the briar bush is in front of you, kind of to your,
there was
like 1 o'clock.
That was another one, yeah. But I was sitting with another briar bush a little bit behind me to try and cover something my silhouette, right? But my thought, different than what we just talked about, was John was on the right side of that logging path, just a smidge in front of me. I was like, well, I think he could shoot along that logging road to see more than I could. So I wanted that briar patch at 1 o'clock to cover me up if he comes right down that path, right?
Yeah.
And that bird, the way you worked him in, I just got that gut feeling, man. I'm like, he is not gonna come through that wide open shit. I just knew. I had a gut feeling. I was like, he's gonna try and sneak up right over here to my left in the timber a little more. And after learning lesson 1 and 2 earlier in the morning, I'm ready. I damn near could like blink an eye and be on my bead. You know what I mean? I have it up on my knee. I'm freaking ready. And same thing. He shuts up, right? And I hear leaves. And here came that head, and dude, as soon as I didn't even see beard or nothing, right? I just seen that head pop up, and he bowled it right down the other side. He picked me out without even moving. I never even pulled my gun up or nothing. I was sitting there, just gonna wait, and his head popped over. There's a little, I should explain a little better. There's a little ditch, a little farther away from me, a little creek, right?
It goes uphill. Yeah. Up to your left, it goes uphill, and then there's a drainage.
Yep.
He was like in that drainage working.
He crossed that and worked up. Yeah, I just seen red, didn't even move. Was trying to play it slow, and boom, he turned right back around and bolted right down the backside. So I'm like, shit, waiting. He crossed that ditch and was working uphill, and I put it on him. After not aiming earlier in the morning, that's all I was thinking about all day, right? It was like aim. It's like bow hunting. You're telling yourself 4 different steps when you're pulling on a deer. But so I'm telling myself aim, and I shoot. And I knew he was far, but out of frustration, I didn't care. And I barrel rolled him. I watched him go down and tumble a couple of times. So I got up. And when I got up, he was like kind of out of my sight from that ditch. I don't remember because I was running uphill, and he was rolling down. And when I got up, there he was running away, running up the hill, just bolting away from me.
I think there's a couple big lessons there, right? I think the biggest one is if you got a bird gobbling, like to just bring the excitement down, relax. Mm-hmm. Let's all communicate. I think we could have communicated, all of us, a little better, right? Bryce, you thought John was covering a certain spot. He wasn't, right? John's set up to shoot out across this bottom. Essentially, nobody was set up to shoot the logging road in case he did walk right down the middle of us, you know? So I think kind of talking it through a little more and just relaxing and taking our time. I think we had time, right? That it was a half hour before that bird worked into us. And I didn't have to call right away either. So that's a big lesson. I think the second lesson is just kind of what you were touching on is, you know, those birds oftentimes aren't just going to walk right down that logging road, especially on public land. And he did exactly what you'd think a mature turkey would do. He's going to circle uphill so he can kind of see everything. He's not just going to walk, you know, blindly right into it. And that's exactly what he was doing. And the way you were set up, you may have had cover between you and that logging road, but looking from uphill to your left at you, you probably look just like a big giant sore spot on the side of this little dinky tree to him,
right?
You know, and he caught you.
Oh, guarantee it. Yeah.
So, I mean,
and then lesson number 3, you just told me this one after. You didn't have to shoot that bird. He was fired up. You could have went after him again, but I let frustration take it over, and
I mean I
was on redemption line. But
you know, and we're going to talk about a few more misses in this in this podcast, and I'm sure people are going to, you know, talk crap about it or whatever. But like, these are mistakes that people have to make, and people make these mistakes way more than you think, dude. Like deer hunting and turkey hunting, and it's just never talked about. People don't want to bring it up in a podcast because it makes them look bad, or they're not a professional turkey hunter or something like that. But like, these are mistakes you got to make, and dude, I've made plenty of those where, oh, it's a Hail Mary. Maybe if it works, it'll be amazing, and it doesn't work 90% of the time. But like what Bryce was just saying, it would have been a better idea, I think, to just, if you knew that bird was far, you weren't really comfortable with the shot, just let him work off, because it was 4:30 in the afternoon by that point. He's probably roosting somewhere within 400 yards of there.
Yeah,
he ain't going
it was going to be dark.
Yeah,
he wasn't going to be a mile away.
Let's come back and try it again in the morning. We didn't spook him that bad. He just saw something he didn't like. So he probably would have got up to the top of that ridge and forgot about us and roosted right up there. So that is another really good lesson. You're right, is to, if you don't have to, don't shoot it, because there's always a second chance, or could be a second chance at that bird. But after that, I think I was like, me and Bryce actually went on a wild goose chase and walked another mile trying to maybe
looking for him.
Yeah, maybe because you said he did roll when you hit him. So
yeah,
I think you did hit him. So we were hoping maybe he just died up the hill or something like that, but we didn't find him. But
enough for me to get up as quick as I could and about blow my knee out. I was running after him.
Yeah, you ran, man. Me and John were like, did he kill him? Like, what's he doing?
Yeah,
He was just
man.
freaking huffing it up that hill.
I knew it was far, and I see him rolling. I'm like, oh, I got to get going.
Yeah, but dang, man, that one broke my heart.
That one
broke my heart.
Textbook hunt you could dream of. 60 yards from the truck with your two buddies you're hunting with. And you don't even have to call on a mature time goes hammering. Come on. In a bottom, you don't even have to work for it.
Yeah.
So you didn't even have to walk up a hill to get him.
The hunt you dream for.
Yeah.
And we all, as a group, I'd say we definitely panicked. I panicked the most, but we all panicked.
Oh, definitely. We were fired up. We were exhausted. We were kind of doing our due diligence to maybe find another one. And, that would have been a success for that evening, is just to find one.
Yeah.
Let alone get on him, work him, and have a chance to really get him.
Yeah.
No, that was pretty demoralizing.
Yeah, I would say morale was pretty low after that.
Yeah.
Oh. Dude,
and that was our last evening, right? We were hunting. Yeah. That was Monday afternoon, and we were hunting Tuesday morning, and we were leaving. So it was like...
For the sake of time, let's just
let's skip ahead.
Let's skip ahead. So after that concludes that opening weekend, but to kind of put a bow on Kentucky, Josh, you went back. You had another tag in your pocket.
I did. Yeah. So
let's hear about that.
We'll skip a few hunts. I ended up going back. When was that, John? Was that the week before?
So you went to Ohio, and
a weekend went by.
We'll talk about Ohio in itself
next weekend.
And then you went back. Yeah. And it was a rainy...
it would have been like May 2nd, like the first part of May is when I was there. Rainy, yes. So, drove down there on Friday evening, and hunted. I essentially went back to the same spot that me and you, John, and Bryce, that first ridge that we split up onto 3 different ridges, and John had the turkeys fighting and everything. That's where I went. I was like, there were a bunch of birds in there. I'm sure it was hit pretty hard, but it's, been 2.5, 3 weeks since the season started. Yeah. I'm just going to start there first morning, see what I hear, and that's what I did. And long story short, I went down your ridge, John, got all the way back there, and I ended up hearing a bird way off, like towards the west, kind of where Bryce and where I killed my bird, like off that direction. So I made a big move, went on to the next ridge, walked way out that ridge, took about an hour, and just sat there for about 45 minutes to an hour and listening. and that bird was started gobbling again, but he was another ridge over still. So I'm like, oh Jesus. So I ended up, I had a decision to make. Do I just drop down and try to come up to that bird, or do I take, essentially the only other way to get to that bird was to walk back out to the access road, the gravel access road, walk all the way down to the circle where it dead ends, and walk in from there, and then walk all the way back in, Bryce, to where you missed that first bird. So my thought was like, I need to get there soon. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. That's going to take me a really long time. By the time I get there, who knows where that bird will be. So I'm just going to drop down in this bottom and come up. No problem. And it was a problem, dude. I ended up dropping all the way down, side-hilled it for a long ways, dropped into the bottom, and coming up on him, dude, I thought I was going to have a freaking heart attack. Like, that was so steep. There was not a single, like, nice spot to, like, work up this hill in a gradual spot. So I'm like literally going up the hill like this because it was intense, dude. I get all the way up to the top, and that bird was still gobbling. And he ended up being on private, and I ended up getting probably, 60, 80 yards from the private line, and I would call to him, he'd gobble. I'd call to him, he'd gobble. And then he got quiet, and I was in a really good spot. I sat there for, I don't know, probably 2 hours on him. It was probably noon by the time I gave up on this bird. I hadn't heard him for a long time, and I just figured he probably worked off another way, or maybe he busted me and I didn't know it or something. So I ended up giving up on him about noon, and I decided I'm going to go to the spot that we got gypped on where those New York guys were. And that afternoon, that was my thought. I'm going to drive in there, and it's really cool there because there's some fields that are on public, which is kind of rare down there. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm going to get in one of these fields, put out a decoy, and just call and just hang out for the rest of the afternoon, And I took a camera in with me, too. And because there's a big scrape back in there me and John found, and, I was really excited to put a camera on here for deer season. And I'm sitting there, and I sat for about 2 hours. It's probably like 3 to 5 o'clock. And I called pretty sparingly. My decoy's sitting there, and it's about 5 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm going to get up, and I'm just going to walk to the back of this bottom, pop it out of this field into the woods, hang this camera real quick, and then I'm probably going to get out of here, go try and roost a bird somewhere. So I go hang this camera up. I was probably gone a half hour. And I come back. And instead of being, sneaky and sneaking out to the field and peeking and looking, I'm just walking, not really paying attention. And I pop out into the corner of the field, and I look up, and sure as shit, literally right where my decoys were, is a big tom standing there.
Oh.
Like, you want to talk about patience. Like, if I would have waited 20 minutes, 10 minutes, who knows, that bird would have walked right into my setup.
Oh.
Because he was definitely coming into my calls. He was just taking his time. It was afternoon. He's not in a hurry. And he obviously spots me, takes off back up the hill. I try to make some big move, and it was a nightmare, dude. I get way up high again, and I called for about 40 minutes, and then, by that time, it was pretty late, and I'm like, I busted that bird. I'm going to get out of here. But when I was leaving, I get out to my truck, and I start driving away. There's a bunch of private fields that kind of are between the road and all the public, and I'm looking up in these private fields, and there's a group of turkeys. There's a big tom and like 2 hens, and I watch them work up into the public. This is maybe, I don't know, not even a quarter mile down from where I was hunting. So I'm like, okay, there's a bunch of birds in here. I'm just going to get in here in the morning and, get way up high and listen and hopefully get on a bird. And that worked out pretty good. But let's see. So I got there really early, started working back in. And, dude, oh, yeah, it was like probably an hour and a half before daylight, dude. And I'm working up this big ridge. And I'm not even a quarter of the way up it. And I'm like, was that a gobble? like pitch black, dude. Not going to be daylight for an hour and a half. And I stand there and I'm listening and I hear, caw, caw, caw. I'm like, this bird's gobbling like way before daylight. This is crazy. And he was hammered, dude. Like every 3 minutes he would gobble.
Wow.
And the whole way up this ridge, I got all the way out this big long ridge, got within 85 yards of this bird, never stopped gobbling the whole time. Just hammering. As it starts getting daylight, it starts raining. And right about that time when they fly down, the rain started, he goes quiet, silent. And I sat in this spot for probably an hour, and I didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. I could see pretty good ways, too, so I was pretty sure, like, this bird wasn't working into me. He must have flown down. I'm thinking it's probably that bird that I saw in that field the evening before, and he probably flew down with some hens. It's raining pretty good. They're probably working out to these fields. Probably in the private, but I got a couple fields on the public. I'm going to work down to these fields, maybe, see what I see. Maybe there's some birds out there. So after walking all the way up this ridge, I was up there for an hour. I dropped right back down where I came from, and I'm working out, excuse me, I'm working out this bottom, and I can kind of see the field out in front of me. It's, I'm getting pretty close, and boom, there's a turkey, big gobbler right in front of me, and he shoots up over the ridge and disappears. Busted him. So I'm like, dude, I'm just like walking around, just busting turkeys left and right. What am I doing, So at that point, I'm really frustrated. I'm like, I drove all the way back down here, and I don't have the patience to just stop moving around, Josh, or pay attention, or move slower, I was really frustrated. But when I was way up on top of the ridge, I could hear another bird way out across the public fields. So I knew there was another bird in there somewhere. That probably wasn't the bird the bird I spooked was probably the one that I was on in the morning. So I'm like, I'm just going to go back to my truck. I'm going to get my decoys. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to set my decoys up in the field and just sit in the rain. What else am I going to do? I got all day to hunt, I'm down here. Might as well sit in the rain.
What time are we looking at right now?
Right now, it's probably 9:15, 9:30, something like that. And so I walk back to the truck, grab both my decoys, and I start working back. And to kind of explain it, there's like this little access of public that splits all this private. And as you're walking back, there's private on both sides of you. And as I'm walking back, I'm looking out in this private to the right of me, and I'm like, there's a turkey out there. Turkey strutting and feeding and hanging out. So I like stop, and I'm standing there, and I'm just watching him and seeing what he's doing, and I'm trying to figure out how I can get to him or where I should call to him from. And so essentially what I ended up doing is just walking the private line all the way up the ridge, and I could kind of see down into the private and I could kind of keep eyes on him the whole time. So I ended up getting, like I said, way up above him, and I called to him a little bit, and you could tell he was like, he would stop and listen and look, but he never gobbled at me. He wasn't like really interested, but he just kept kind of circling around this one little area out in this big hayfield, just feeding on stuff. And there's some brush and briars, and there's a little creek that runs through there, and he's just hanging out. And I'm standing in the rain, just kind of, what's your next move, turkey? Like, are you going to work towards the public? You going to just turn? And I watched him for probably 2 hours. You going to turn and just walk away from me? Is this all going to be for naught? Like, what's going to happen? And where I'm standing, dude, I can see a mile out across these hayfields, dude, just forever. And way out, dude, probably, I don't know. I don't even know how far. Way out. I just see these, like, 3 little things moving. And I'm like, dude, there's more turkeys out there. Holy crap, there's turkeys everywhere, And those turkeys, they start getting closer, and they start working towards this other bird that's down in front of me. And I'm watching, and I'm watching. And those birds probably got 250 yards from that turkey. And that turkey sees them. I think it was a group of 3 jakes. But that turkey sees those jakes, and he literally just turns and just beelines it, dude, right towards the public, down low. So I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like moving through the woods and I'm trying to watch him and I'm trying to drop down the hill as he's like coming in like this, you know? And as soon as I was like, oh, he's committed, he's gone, he's covering ground, I just booked it, dude. I just started running down this ridge, dude. I'm busting sticks, flinging stuff. I'm like, I have to make it down to this public field because there's like a little gate. And really, the way I thought he was going to do, he was headed right towards that gate. He's going to cross out of that private into that public field. And now I got to beat him there, right? I got to beat him down there, and I got to get a hen decoy out and be set up before he even gets in that field. So I'm running, dude. And as I'm like running down this hill, I just hear, it's raining, remember? Turkey's running. I'm freaking out. I just hear this like this, the biggest oak tree you've ever seen just cracks in half and falls out of nowhere like 100 yards from me. Dude, it's like, whoa, freaking wild, man. Dude. I'm like almost dying. It wasn't even windy, so I don't even know.
This is I've ever listened
to. This tree just slammed. It was the loudest thing I have ever heard in my life, dude. I watched it. I'm like, what is happening right now? I gotta get this turkey. So I like keep running, you know. I'm like, I'll check the tree out later, maybe. Get down to the edge of the field, and I'm like, dude, the way how fast that turkey was moving, he's got to be in this field by now. So I'm like looking, I'm like, I don't see him. Like, I got to get this decoy out. So what I ended up doing, I get my hen decoy and I just like belly crawled out like 10 feet from the edge of the woods and just put this hen out. And then I just backed right up and I got like buried in this big briar bush that was between me and where I thought that bird was coming from. I had a tree on my back and like I just had literally this tiny little window to my hen decoy. And I sat there for, I don't know, 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I called maybe 3 times. Nothing, no gobbles, nothing. So at one point, I like looked back at my hen decoy because I could kind of see the field through the briars. And I'm just waiting to see like this big black ball moving into this hen decoy. And I look back at my hen decoy and she's flat on the ground. She fell over. I must not have like stuck her in the grass very well. So I'm like, shit, do I like crawl back out and like lift the hen decoy up? Like he could be right out in this field and not see her. And I'm just going to bust her. But there's no way I'm going to shoot this bird unless he comes right here. So I need this hen decoy. So I made the decision. I'm just going to set everything down. I'm going to crawl back out to this hen, put her up. So as I'm crawling out to this hen, I go to like stick her up and I hear like 90 yards. And I'm like, oh my God.
He's here.
And like I knew, so he was gobbling over where we saw those birds in the field the night before, or the trip before. When we ran into the New York people, right? He had crossed the field that I was in and went into the next field.
So he didn't take a hard 90 and come up the hayfield where you were at. So pretty much in...
He just went straight through.
Quote unquote, the drainage, right? Because that's what it's a hayfield between 2 ridges.
Yes. So I knew he couldn't see me from there after I heard him gobble. So I called a couple times and he cut me off and like double gobbled. I'm like, oh, he's coming. So I just backed right into that spot I was in and just set up, had my gun ready. I'm ready to go. He gobbled maybe like 1 or 2 more times and silence. And probably another 15 minutes goes by. I'm like, where is this bird, dude? How has he not come in yet? And he quit gobbling. And I'm like looking around, I'm looking back behind me. And then all of a sudden, like, I can't tell you how thick this stuff was in front of me. It's thick. But I just see this like bright red thing, like literally 10 feet from me. And I'm just like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, oh shit, that's a turkey, dude. Dude, this bird was 10 feet from me, just right on the edge of the field. Full strut, coming right into my hen decoy, just like as quiet and slow as you could be. Just like, I mean, it was wild, dude. And as soon as I'm just got my gun pointed right at the hen, and as soon as he like pops out, I'm like eye to eye with him. I could have literally just like thrown my gun and hit him.
Wow.
Crazy, dude. And I just pulled the trigger and boom, done, dude. 5 feet. 10 feet.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So
it was a crazy turkey hunt.
How close was he to the head decoy?
Oh, he was like feet. Yeah, he was right there.
Wow.
He was right on her. Yeah.
Dude, that's wild.
It was a crazy hunt, man.
That's that's one of the best stories I've heard ever.
But I think I really lucked out too, because because he was kind of beat up. His feathers were kind of real messed up too. I think he was only a 2-year-old bird. I don't think he was like some big mature gobbler, but I think he had been getting his ass beat by jakes. And I think he saw those jakes coming, and I think those jakes saved me, and he was like, I'm out of here. I'm not sticking around.
Yeah.
And he ended up coming right to me, man. So you want to talk about patience and playing the waiting game, man. Like,
that's what I was going to say. You never know what happens when you stay patient like that. Oh
yeah, I mean,
hunt.
I had nothing else to do, right? I'm on a trip. I spent all this money, all this time, hotels, all that stuff, and tags. And, like, after messing up on 2 birds prior to that because I just wasn't being patient enough, and I, was just moving around lackadaisical, lazily and not paying attention. I was like, I'm sitting here till this bird comes in. He's going to come in. And it worked out, man. I lucked out, but it was fun.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good
Wet
story.
bird, man. Wet bird. It was
heavy.
Raining like crazy. But
so don't be discouraged if there's a little bit of rain out there.
No.
Them birds are out there, man. And they'll still gobble.
He was gobbling in the rain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I ended up killing him. I think I first saw him about like 9:30, 10 o'clock, right after I spooked that bird. And it might have been the bird I spooked. I don't know. But I ended up killing him at like noon or something like that. So it was a few hours of just watching him, waiting. And yeah, he ended up breaking towards me, and I got lucky. So pretty crazy.
2 tags filled. There you go.
Yeah, tagged out in Kentucky.
Heck yeah, it's awesome.
2 adult birds, which is pretty epic. Pretty epic for me. So, but yeah, let's talk about. We're at an hour and 12 minutes, man. We've been talking for a little bit. Do you want to talk about West Virginia a little bit? What happened with you down there, Bryce?
Sure, I can make that quick. Yeah.
Sure.
West Virginia was different. This is last year I went with the same group, and we went real late. And they don't really hunt like us, to be honest. They're lazy hunters. They're taking bikes and buggies up on top of ridges in the morning.
Well, your buddies are going to hear this. They're going to hear you talking
That's
shit
okay.
about it.
They make fun of me for being on a podcast in general, so they can get that.
Right.
But so yeah, I mean, we get up at least on time. We get up before dark, but it's like you get up there on top of the hill. By that time, it's barely peaking light. You're just waiting to hear something. We don't really know where the bird's at. They're everywhere. It's private. Terrain was a lot different, right? Like I said earlier, you got a lot of right-of-ways, pipeline right-of-ways, power line right-of-ways, private pastures. There's old farms down there, etc. But a lot of benches, like I said. There's hunting shacks all over. They make lanes for them, you know how it goes, blah, blah, blah. But we were hearing gobbles nonstop every morning. And sometimes even seeing them from afar, like across the right of way, a ridge over. They come out, strut for 20 minutes, go back in, blah, blah. You know, they were tough to hunt, but they were always flying down to hens first thing in the morning. Yeah. We could hear them hammering. We're like, oh, that. I remember the first morning, we were right on top of this bird. We're like, oh, that thing's. I looked at my buddy, I said, oh, we're killing that bird. That thing's dead. Just based off the action we had just had in Kentucky, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no, he flies down away from us. We get up on top of the right away. We look down. He's already with 2 hens right off the rip. We never even heard those hens. Never heard him cluck once. He knew they were roosting with him hard.
What time? What weekend were you down there?
I want to say that weekend you went to Kentucky. No. This would have been opening. No, this would have been April.
You're
this
down there like the
opening
21st,
weekend of West
22nd
Virginia.
or something like that, right? Yeah.
Their season opens on like a Monday. So this was the weekend of that. The first weekend you could hunt down there.
Okay.
So they haven't really been pressured, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, so we struggled for that whole first day, and I think the next morning with trying to get these birds off hens. And my buddy was going with 2 other guys, and they started pinpointing these birds that were doing like the same feeding process in the morning. These 2 or 3 gobblers were roosting with hens. They were flying down on a new pipeline they did, and they just had planted seed and, you know what I mean, straw mat, trying to get grass back and everything. Well, every morning they were watching them gobble their heads off, want nothing to do with them, fly down and walk this bull and feed. So I'm like, all right. I told my buddy next morning, I said, we're going all the way up around there behind this power plant. We're going to kill that bird. We're going to set up right where he feeds. We're going to hunt him like a freaking deer. And he flew down same way. I got him to gobble once. He came up the hill right to my buddy, and he dropped it. But it was a style of turkey hunting never had really tried. But yeah, they called it right in, boom, dead.
How were you set up? Were you set up back behind him, or were you sitting next to him on the same tree? Like how did that look?
Behind.
Were you?
And
like
he was
how
up
far?
in like a bush. Probably like 30 yards.
Okay, cool.
So they were
Sweet, man.
They smoked them.
So you caught him on a routine, huh?
Got him on a routine.
That's a deadly way to kill turkeys, especially when, if they're henned up, and you're trying to kill them early like that, knowing where they like to be, knowing where they want to be, where those hens like to be. That's a really good way to do it.
We didn't really go roosting birds either. I tried to get them to go every night. Let's go roost. No, don't need to. There's birds everywhere. It's like, well, you're kind of right, but do you want to get right on top of them, or do you want to try and get them from 200 yards away? Like,
yeah, like when I hunt Ohio and I hunt like some of my private farms, like I don't waste time to drive all the way out there and roost a bird the night before. Like they're either there in the morning, and I only have 80, 90 acres to work with, so like I'm gonna get on them or I'm not.
Close as you can too.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then the other guy on a rainy day, he was like, I'm going out to right away by himself, and he stumbled upon a couple walking right away, a Jake and a Tom, and called him right in, and he shot it. This was a wild story the way he told it, but shot it, barrel rolled it, ran after it, tackled it. It got away from him. The turkey's like running back and forth, doesn't know where to go. It's so concussed. He finds it again, laying down, and he didn't have his gun loaded on him. So he tried to jump and tackle it again, and then it ran off. And we went looking for it, never found it. But
oh man,
oh my, he was like wrestling this bird for 20 minutes and
didn't have his gun loaded again. Oh my god, dude!
I guess he shot at it like 3 times too. But yeah,
see, that stuff happens to more people than they care to talk about.
Yeah,
that was a wild one.
But yeah,
that
cool,
was West
man.
Virginia though. It was tough. It's always that second year. It was the same way last year. They're on them hens hard.
Yeah, well, that's how it is in Ohio. Usually, early season they're on hens. Usually, later in the season, you tend to do a lot better pulling a bird right off the roost and killing it. But that's where, I will say if they are with hens, that's another way is to roost them and to know exactly where they're at. If you're within 60, 80 yards of that bird when the sun's coming up, like, it's a lot easier to get them to drop right down into your lap than,
And it was down there you can only hunt till, I think it was noon or 1, I think, or something. You can only hunt mid-afternoon, so pulling a bird off finding one that's fired up and left hens is tough itself.
Yeah.
You got to find it right at prime time, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't get that afternoon lonely gobbler walking around down there.
Yeah.
So.
No, 3 o'clock, 50 yards from the truck.
Yeah. But yeah, so we learned a lot. John, what do you want what do you think we should do? What's the plan?
So I think we've covered a lot of Kentucky. You know, I think we put a bow on that thing. We touched on your West Virginia hunt. So I've got one more weekend, one more hunting me.
Yes.
Gonna break away from the family. They're gonna give me one more shot at it. I had taken a couple of stabs at a couple of birds in Ohio. I know you've got an Ohio story you'd like to tell. But for the sake of time, let me get my last one in, and everybody stay tuned. And the next podcast can be Ohio.
Yeah, that works. That's a good idea. Yeah. So let's talk about your hunt. You're going hunting.
Yeah. So
this weekend.
That's right, in the northeast zone of Ohio.
I'm jealous.
Got one more. The season marries with Pennsylvania's. So Pennsylvania's got one more weekend. I think my goal, without giving up too much of what I've done in previously, get out there really early. I've got 80 acres to work with. So I've got it's called a fen wetland, so it forever has water flowing through it. So it's a swamp that's standing water all the time. And that splits the back third of my property. I got beaver dams all over it, which I use to kind of get from one side to the other. So I think my game plan is to get out there early. The last couple times I've been out, I've had some encounters. They are roosting, on the edge of that swamp. And I think my game plan is the last couple times I've been out there, they've been on the opposite side, which doesn't make things easy for me, but that's okay. Get out there, get across the swamp, try and pinpoint where one's roosted. There's a couple of trees that I can get pretty dang close to, as long as I don't bust them walk across that swamp. So that's kind of my plan. It's late in the season. I think I can call them in. There's a ton of foliage on the trees, so I think I can sneak around pretty good without getting busted. I can get pretty darn close. I've got
that's going to be that's a huge difference between hunting early season and hunting late season that I think doesn't get talked about a lot, is how much more foliage you got to work with for cover. And when you're working in, say you don't roost a bird the night before and you just walk in and you're just waiting to hear a turkey, like that's a way more doable situation late season when there's tons of foliage on the trees and you can walk within 80 yards of that bird and he won't know you're there. As opposed to, April 15th, and you're trying to do that and you're 200 yards and you can see the bird gobbling through the trees.
Yep.
So that's a really good point. But, I talked to you a little bit about your last hunt. It sounds like you got a lot of turkeys there. So I'm crossing my fingers for you, man. I think,
so the weather is looking clear.
Yeah.
But cold. I think the night before I'm gonna, or the night that I'm gonna head out, I think it's a high of 41, a low of 41. So,
it's gonna be chilly
at 4:35 in the morning. I'm gonna be wearing a couple of layers.
You'll probably be sweating by noon, though.
Probably. Well, hopefully I'll be walking out.
But hopefully you'll be out.
There you go.
But so, can we talk a little bit about roosting, where birds like to roost? So where you're hunting up there, John, in Ashtabula, is flat as a freaking pancake. Topography is 15, 20 feet.
Is a
right?
Big, yeah.
So in the hills, you know, I think turkeys love roosting in, you know, at the edge of at the tips of points or off of benches, places where they can fly down into the roost or straight across into their roost. They don't really have to work too much to fly up. Places where their gobbles are going to be enhanced, you know, up at the top of a drainage, and they can gobble and it can, you know, go out through all these different bottoms and everything. And you can kind of look at a map like, say, Kentucky, and you could probably guess there's going to be a bird roosted there. There's going to be a bird roosted there. Definitely one on this knob. What do you think, like, how do you do that in flat country? Like, where are birds roosting? Where do you think?
So, for me, it's typically on habitat transitions. So for me, I got that wetland, right? And from all my experiences, they're going to be on the edge of that wetland. So off ag fields, away from the ag fields, more into that. So you got field terrain, and then you've got hardwoods. Or if it's feather edge, there will be a little bit of a transition zone. Then you've got your hardwoods, and then that'll transition to either a fallow field, or, for my case, into a wetland where there are minimal trees. Everything that I've experienced is on the edge of that wetland. I think when they're up there, they're in, you know, some mature timber, some bigger trees, and when they gobble on the roost, it can echo, you know, out, and they can kind of broadcast where they're at. The other thing I've noticed, so there are a couple of ridges. There's a ridge system that, you know, I can get into. Again, the topography is 20 feet elevation change, and I've seen them roost on that. And I think the reason being is they can walk that top of that little ridge, and they can only, you know, then it'll be easier for them to fly up.
Yeah.
You know, instead of flying vertically up through a bunch of branches, they can kind of pitch off and coast into a top of a tree.
Yeah. So there are two like old sayings that I've heard some like old timer turkey hunters say. One that always stick in my head. One is, when the buds of an apple tree are the size of a squirrel's ear, it's time to go kill a turkey. You know, that's a pretty good one. Yeah. And then the other one is some version of this, but like flatland turkeys like to roost where their shit'll hit the water.
Oh.
Do you see it? Do you find any truth in that? Like, they always roost over top of water or near water in some way.
In my circumstance, yes.
Yeah, so it's a good tip. Old timer tip.
I like that. Yeah, because, I mean, for all the years I've been hunting out there, there's been countless times where I'm walking to my deer stand and I'll spook birds off their roost because I'm walking that edge trying to get to my deer stand, and there they are. They're right there.
Right on the edge of the swamp. Yeah.
Yep.
So, so taken away from Kentucky, everything we've learned, like, what are you gonna do different? What are you gonna implement? What's the big thing that you're gonna, like, this is what I gotta do when you go back there, when you go up there Saturday or Sunday?
So, yeah. So the one takeaway that I took from my fight night hunt was trying to take away those variables where he could sneak around me. So in Kentucky, right, you're working a ridge. When I can hear a bird gobbling on maybe like a spur ridge or the ridge farther away, I think I'm gonna try. Once I feel like I can pinpoint him, I need to get closer. I need to take away his exit routes. So for that hunt where I saw him fight, I think in the back of my head, if I were to go back there and I heard him out on that little spur, he had some distance there and it was still kind of dark, gray light. I think I would be more careful getting on the top of that little knob, but closing that distance down. So maybe call on the back side of that knob, and if he cuts me off and, oh, he heard me. Okay. Be careful, but sneak down and get to the point where he's got to walk to get to that knob and maybe try and cut him off.
Risky. So you're kind of trying to play that game where almost like you have another caller with you or two callers, and you're going to call from 100 yards away and then set up at 70.
Try to.
Hoping that he walks right by you.
Yep.
Yeah, ideally, theoretically, I've done it before and it works, but it's tough and you got to have the right terrain and you got to have, be able to do it quick but quiet and smooth and get all set up without that bird catching you. It's hard to do. It's hard to do early season in Kentucky, So I don't know if you really made a wrong move during that hunt, but because I think that morning that you're talking about, I think I moved in too close to my bird and I think I busted it. But this time of year, yes. If you got a bird gobbling at 100 yards, try and, give him a couple cuts and then move 25 yards towards him and take a seat.
Yep.
And then be quiet.
Yep.
Especially if he gobbles at you,
Yeah, if I could put a big tree in between me and him and I can cut that distance 20 yards, and you know what? That might be risky, but if I could sneak up to that big tree and peek around and maybe I do catch a glimpse of him, well, then I'm just going to stand behind that big tree.
Yeah.
And wait for him to come in. Mm-hmm. But if I can peek around and maybe there's a little knoll between me and him, I'll sneak around and get in front of that tree.
Yeah.
You got to play, like you said, play that terrain.
Situational. Yeah.
And make make lemonade out of lemons and, whatever that terrain's given you, take it.
It's hard. Everybody's got a different style. Like, you watch a lot of people on YouTube or whatever, and they're very aggressive, and it works for them because they've perfected that being aggressive type style of hunting. And then there's guys who aren't aggressive and they sit and they wait and almost deer hunt for turkey, and they're successful too, but they perfected that. So, it's tough. Just learning and making mistakes, and it's
definitely situational.
Yes,
Every
absolutely.
Situation
absolutely.
And going back to Kentucky maybe next year, we've been there for a couple of years now. We know what some of them ridges are. So using that previous experiences, I can, next year if I go to a certain ridge that I've already been on, I know where to get to, versus going down a random ridge that I've never been on. I don't know what's in front of me.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because I know, like, if I'm hunting at the Frank farm and I hear a bird gobble, I know exactly where he's at. I know exactly what's between me and him. I know what I can get away with.
Yep.
But if you're somewhere like that first morning when me and Bryce were on that bird, I don't know what's up around the corner. I don't know where he's sitting at. I don't know if we can get around this without him seeing us. It's tough.
I think turkeys. They kind of historically mate in similar areas, or even you could say ridges in that instance. But I think they historically go to particular areas to mate during that time of season. But
absolutely,
I'm a believer of that. Yeah,
absolutely. Like they'll, in the winter time and in the fall, they'll all kind of group up, and then when the spring starts hitting, all those toms will break up and they'll all go to. Yeah, you're right, man. They'll go to those. It's kind of like fish, though. I think if a big 5-year-old tom gets killed in the good hole, You know, that 4-year-old's going to take it the next year, you know, but there's you could almost bet almost year after year after year there's going to be a bird here because there was one there last year because it's obviously a good spot, you know, unless something changes. Right. Maybe the clear cut that was really good habitat for hens has overgrown and it's, you know, not as good this year, so maybe there won't be a bird there. But all things considered, I think all things stay the same. I think, you're going to find birds where you've historically found them for sure, which is definitely. But let's we've been talking for a long time. Let's wrap this up. This has been a pretty long one. A couple points I want to make. Just takeaways from Kentucky, things that we've learned. I got a list here. We've been talking. I've been writing things down. And let's just kind of like say our first thing that comes to our head when I say one of these. Patience. What do you think, John?
So patience, right? I think that knowing that people have already been there shouldn't be discouraging. Maybe I'm not answering it. I'm skipping to the next one.
Here, let me try this again. So patience. I'll just say I think a lot of the mistakes that we made this spring were because we weren't being patient enough. I think we can point at several of the stories we've talked about in the last 2 podcasts. You know, me bumping a bunch of birds.
Bryce missing
a couple birds. I think a lot of that has to do with just not being patient enough and not sitting and just trusting the process and remembering the fact that, like, just because a bird's not gobbling doesn't mean he's not coming. Most of the time, if a bird's not gobbling, he is coming. And you just got to wait him out. And turkeys do not have a watch, you know, and I think that's a big thing to try to remember. Like, he's got a whole day, you know, and there are other hens out there, and he's just going to take his time. So who knows when he's going to get there. So keep that in mind. I think John had a hunt last year on Redemption Road that was, you know, a perfect example of not being patient enough. No offense, John, but, you know, standing up and seeing 2 birds coming down the road at you. Yeah. It's like, shit. Yeah. Like, I couldn't have waited 5 minutes.
Right.
You know,
even after an hour's passed, you know.
Yeah.
I knew they were gobbling out there, and when I'd call, they would, you know, if they cut you off or respond to your calling, they've acknowledged you.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be patient and don't give up. Utilizing that, stop calling and just sitting and waiting it out. They're going to get frustrated. You know, you got to keep telling yourself they're going to get frustrated and they're going to come check it out. You know, maybe they do have a hen with them and, you know, she gives up on them and they're like, what do I do next? That's right. I had one 300 yards away that called. Let me go see if she's still over there.
Yeah, I think that reminds me, Bryce, me and you had a conversation about, like, running and gunning and covering a bunch of ground. And like, the older I get and the more I turkey hunt, my definition of that has kind of changed, as opposed to just, like, you know, walking and calling. And if I don't hear anything, just keep moving. You know what I mean? And it's become more of like a, you know, still hunting in certain locations for a little while, almost like
at certain times of the day too.
Yeah, at certain times of the day, almost like setting up for later in the morning, right? Because, like, what happens in that, you know, in turkey biology is they're with hens in the morning about 8:30, 9 o'clock, maybe 9:30. Those hens disappear on them to go lay a egg in their nest, and those toms are alone about that time. And that's why a lot of times you'll get an influx in gobbling, and a lot of people are really successful around, you know, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, is because those toms are by themselves. So a lot of times, like, John, what you were saying is, if I'm calling from one location at 8 o'clock in the morning, even though that bird's, you know, 100 yards out with a hen, he's going to remember at 10 o'clock when that hen leaves him that, oh, there was another hen over there. Let me go over there and see what she's doing. So hanging out there for a couple hours or working your way back to that spot later in the morning and letting out a couple calls and sitting for another hour can be a very effective way to kill a bird. And that all has to do with patience, I think. So just being patient and playing that long game especially when they're henned up, man. Let's skip to the next one. I got two more for you. Don't be afraid of pressure. What do you think about that, John? What do you got to say?
Yeah. I think I jumped ahead with the first answer. I think last year and this year, running into people and you just can't get discouraged when there's other people around. I felt like every time we got foiled on one of our plans, we were forced into a plan B. And for whatever reason, that plan B was not bad.
Yeah.
We ran into some good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, driving down these public roads and seeing that a truck was there on Friday, a truck was there on Saturday, and then you go and it's Sunday, doesn't mean that there's not a bird down there.
Yeah.
And we've seen that time and time again. This year, I was so not discouraged by running into people or having my plans foiled because it doesn't matter. It's wild to think that because it's kind of the opposite when you think about deer hunting. If a guy's been in there for a week, the likelihood of having a big mature buck in there, I think the percentages go down.
Yeah.
That buck's going to smell that somebody's been in there, putting foot traffic in and going in and out, or that person, gets winded and that buck smells a person. He's like, I know exactly what that is and I am not interested. I'm moving on.
Yep.
It's not like that with the turkeys. It's just not.
Yeah, I know when we were after that first morning, we were driving up to this spot where we spent a lot of time with Bryce. And I remember we were telling Bryce like, oh, there's a ton of pressure here, a lot of people. And Bryce was like, why are we going there then?
Yeah.
and me and John tried hunting places where there wasn't any pressure in Kentucky 2 years ago. We covered days on the ground, days in places where there was nobody, no trucks, and there were no turkeys. Nope. There's a bunch of people up that road because I think there are a bunch of turkeys there.
I remember you saying that when first time we drove that road in the moon. Like, there's a reason there's a lot of people.
We passed 30 trucks, and Bryce is like, "What the hell are we doing here?"
Yeah,
and I'm just like, dude, there are birds here, man. Trust me. Like, we just got to find an open spot.
Yeah,
and so not being afraid of that, I think that was a really big takeaway. I think that's such a big thing that all the YouTubers harp on is get away from the pressure, do your due diligence and find places where there's no boot tracks and find places where there's no tire tracks. Well, everywhere we went, there was boot tracks and tire tracks and multiple trucks and people.
Nowadays.
And we were still on birds. Like, Bryce could have killed 3 different turkeys if things would have turned out different. I could have killed, a couple birds. John had a chance at 2 or 3 different birds. So, like, we were on birds every day, all day almost, tons of action, and we were surrounded by people everywhere.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, I think that's a really big lesson. And then the last one I'll say is, we talked about doing this 2 podcasts ago before turkey season even started, was to be different. To be different than other hunters, right? If we're going to be hunting in really pressured areas where there's a ton of people everywhere, well, there's turkeys there. Yep. We just got to be different than the hunters trying to kill them. We got to come at them different. I know in the hunt where I was successful that Monday morning, I killed a bird. I think a lot of that had to do with I killed him down in a bottom that I doubt anybody had been in, because it was a nightmare to get down in there. And I think that Tom was down in there strutting and gobbling probably all weekend and never saw a hunter. You know what I mean? I could have easily saw that bird and been like, no, I'm going to go try and find another bird that I don't have to work so hard for. But I didn't, and it worked out for me. So I think...
And how about that first hunt that me and you went on?
Yeah.
That's being different right there.
Definitely being different.
You're having a game plan different than anybody I've ever heard or even seen hunt in my life. It was brutal, but it was a different game plan.
Yeah, it was walking up that mountain in the dark at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Cold as hell.
Yep,
yeah.
Cold as hell. Yep. I mean, just coming at them from different angles. I think, Bryce, a big one is how we dropped you off on that piece of public and let you come in. I think that was very different.
That was risky, but it was
right.
Different, right?
I bet way back in there, those birds probably don't see people coming in from that angle very often, right?
No. Yeah.
So I think that was a really a difference maker there, and it put you up right in them.
Textbook.
John,
you have any thoughts on doing things different than everybody else?
Yeah, no, I think you guys touched on them. It's it's both of those. Going where maybe the other folks were less willing to go. I think, Bryce, on yours, I don't think a truck's ever parked where we dropped you off, because it's just not a pull-off.
Right.
You had to work your butt off to climb up that little
literally
spur.
the road, and then just a cliff goes right up.
Straight
like
up.
Literally, when I dropped you off and I was driving away, I was like a little worried for you. I'm like, dude, should I see if his light makes it to the top, or like?
I didn't even in front of that light long because the moon. There's another way you could be different, using less light. I mean, if you can see enough to walk, I don't think you should be using it, because you never know when you're gonna be right on top.
That's a good point. If you got the eyes for it, man, walking around in the morning with a red light or a green light or whatever, like turkeys see that, and if you can get away without a light, that's definitely a good thing. But all right, guys. Well, I think we beat Kentucky to death. So hopefully the listeners
awesome
enjoy
Kentucky is, though, people.
Oh, it's fun.
It's how awesome.
We don't want anybody else getting the idea to go there, though. There's too many people down there. So, I appreciate you guys jumping on. I know how hard it is to get us all on here at the same time and get our schedules lined up and all that. So, I haven't even eaten dinner yet today, so
I have a deer backstrap roast on warm right now.
There you go.
Devour that.
All right, awesome, man. But we'll end this one. Thank you guys for listening. Look out for the next episode. We're going to talk about turkey hunting in Ohio and how me and John did. Bryce, did you do any turkey hunting in Ohio this year?
I did a little bit, but I was pretty burnt out.
Well, if you want to jump on with us, we'd love it, man. We'd love
We'd
love you to grace us with your presence again.
Fuck ups.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys learned something from us and learn from our mistakes. And if you guys got another weekend or two left, get out there, kill a bird. Good luck. Thank you for joining us. We'll see y'all on the next one.